King, if you're ready. Give her the thumbs up when you're ready.
Good evening. The Thursday, January 6th, 2022 regular school board meeting of the District of Haverford Township is now called to order. Let's rise for the Pledge of Allegiance.
To the flag of the United States of America, and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
As I call the meeting to order, I want to remind everyone that as required in the district's existing ESSER health and safety plan, all students, staff, and visitors must wear masks properly while in our school buildings during times of substantial to high COVID transmission rates. The most recent Delaware County data indicate that we are in a period of high transmission. All visitors, including people attending this meeting at our high school auditorium, must wear masks properly, such that they cover your nose and mouth until you exit the building. When we invite participants to the front for public comment, you will need to keep your mask on. If you do not have a mask, we have provided masks in the back of the room. Please go and get one to wear during the meeting if you don't have one now. If you choose not to wear a mask during the meeting, we will ask you to leave the building. You may then watch the meeting on the district's YouTube page where it is being streamed live. We thank you for your cooperation.
So I need to raise a point of order and an objection under the provision of Pennsylvania Code.
Nope.
Title 65, Public Offices, Chapter 7, Section 10, Open Meetings. Any person has the right to raise an objection at any time to a perceived violation of this chapter at any meeting of a board. And per Title 65, Chapter 7, Section 4, official deliberations and actions should take place at a meeting open to the public. If you are stating a requirement that in order to attend this meeting, you must cover your face, especially when lacking the authority to do so, when the state Supreme Court has ruled that the State Board of Health does not have the authority to make this rule, you are making a de facto statement that this meeting is not open to the public. As my comments allow per Pennsylvania Code, I ask that my comment be entered into the official minutes. My name is Todd Hall. I live in the township. Thank you.
Sir, your objection is noted. The meeting will continue.
Thank you.
Thank you. I will now read the mission statement. The mission of the school district of Haverford Township is to educate and inspire a community of lifelong learners who become well-rounded global citizens. With this mission as our foundation, across our 7 schools and with the dedication of over 1,000 employees, we serve over 6,600 students so that they have opportunities to grow and excel. Our district goals for the 2020 to 2025 period include social and emotional wellness, so that we produce a community of empathetic and resilient learners with skills to socially and emotionally flourish. To prepare contemporary citizens so that we can modernize and expand learning experiences, to prepare students as critical thinkers, problem solvers, innovators, and designers within a complex global society. And to foster diversity and inclusion so that we may establish a culturally diverse and inclusive educational experience that develops socio-cultural proficiency. Now, Ms. Q, please call the roll.
Dr. Crispin.
Here.
Dr. King.
Here.
Ms. Larson.
Here.
Dr. McKay.
Here.
Mr. Schwartz.
Here.
Ms. Snodgrass. Ms. Vitale.
Here.
Mr. Feinberg.
Here.
Ms. Wiedemann.
Here, and Ms. Snodgrass's absence is due to illness. And I would like to ask members of the board as we engage in the meeting to please state your names before making motions or comments so that they can better be recorded in the minutes. And the next item of business is to approve the official minutes from our December 16th, 2021 regular public board meeting.
Larson moved.
Feinberg, second.
Any discussion? All in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed? The minutes are approved. Tonight, we do not have a student report from the middle school, but we have Emilia Gonzalez here from the high school.
Hello, my name is Emilia Gonzalez, and I'm a senior at Haverford High School. Thank you for having me here to share our Haverford updates. The week leading up to winter break was full of excitement. Our National Honor Society helped wrap gifts for local families, and our winter concerts filled the community with holiday spirit. Our week-long winter break allowed students to spend restful time with their families and enjoy the final days of the 2021 year. Students in Algebra 1, Biology, and Sophomore English started the Keystones on Tuesday and will continue until tomorrow. The rest of the students have a 3-hour delay in order for the test takers to have ample time to successfully complete their assessments. Haverford always does well on the Keystones, and this year will be no different. Winter sports are in full swing. Our boys ice hockey team continues their successful season, and their next home game will be on January 10th at the stadium. Our swim team was recently named the Delco Invitational champs at their Ridley Delco Invitational. On Tuesday, while our boys swim team lost to the Haverford School, our girls swim team defeated Agnes Irwin. We know a great season lies ahead of both teams. Our basketball teams proudly represent Haverford on the courts and have been showing their skills throughout the week, including tonight. Over break, the wrestling team came in 6 out of 32 teams in a local tournament. The athleticism at Haverford continues to excel. Our radio station, WHHS 99.9 FM, is hosting their first coffee house of the year this Friday. Students will be able to perform live in front of their classmates and enjoy the music with friends. Additionally, the National Honor Society is having another induction ceremony for those students who were accepted last school year. The ceremony will take place next week at the Haverford High School Auditorium on Tuesday, January 11th at 7 p.m. The auditions for this year's spring musical, Mamma Mia, are beginning to take place this week. While waiting is difficult, we know that our drama department will only deliver an outstanding performance in the spring. As the new year begins, Haverford is very excited about what opportunities 2022 will bring to the community. Thank you again for giving me the opportunity to talk about Haverford High School news.
Thank you.
At this point in time, there are a number of groups from the high school that we want to recognize for their many accomplishments this evening. This is always a point of pride for us, and it's a nice opportunity for our board members and other administrators to hear about the accomplishment of these students and to hear from the high school administration, as well as I see many of the adults who work with these young people in the audience tonight. Thank you for joining us, and for our students, thank you for being the wonderful ambassadors you are of Haverford, not only Haverford High School, but representing the school district of Haverford Township as in your travels. People know you as Haverford, and we could not be more proud of what you have accomplished and how you represent this community. Mr. Donaghy, will you get us started with identification of some of our select students who are members of PMEA?
Sure, thank you, Dr. Reusche. We do have a great group here tonight. First, we're going to start with PMEA, Pennsylvania Music Educators Association. It's the board of school teachers who do the music arts within all the schools in the local area and throughout Pennsylvania. And these students have made it to the next round in the competition. We're a little light tonight on some of the kids being here, and that has nothing to do with COVID. It is that they have the re-audition this evening for the next round that is due at 11:59 p.m. And I know none of our Haverford students ever procrastinate, but they wanted to do the best they could. So a couple of them are at home submitting their final work, and I did say it was okay that they missed this evening, but we'll make sure they get their certificates. And then with me this evening is Ms. Hendler and Mr. Brennan. They can come on up. Ms. Hendler is our choral teacher. Mr. Brennan's our orchestra teacher. Mr. Hart's our band teacher. He couldn't make it tonight, but they do a tremendous job. They work way beyond their hours. They're very thoughtful. They're very skilled. We're very fortunate to have such quality teachers and such quality people who love the arts and who bring it to not only the students, but to the community as well. So we're going to announce everyone, and if you are here this evening, if you could come up And then if you could just come up to the stairs, we're going to get a quick picture. And we want everybody at home to make sure they can see you. Sophia Politano. Alexandra Luff. Owen Crucian. Caleb Schmidt. Nick Borgese. Katya Simmons. These are our choral students. They do such a wonderful job. And just to let you know, too, our choral students come to athletic events. They come to National Honor Society events. They sing at different functions that we have throughout the school year. We have a little mini graduation for different students throughout the year who graduate halfway through the year or after they're 18. And they do such a wonderful job just bringing a lot of spirit to the school. So thank you. So for band and orchestra, we have Henry Allen, Katie Yoon, Abigail Lint, Jordan Barbary, Chloe Yoon, and again, Henry Allen. So we just want to congratulate. Again, we want to congratulate the students. We thank our teachers for all they do for the students in and out of the classroom each day. And we want to thank the board, too, for taking time out, especially in January. It's a busy time of month. And congratulations on being such a board and a good board. And congratulations on School Board Association Month, if I'm saying that correctly. It's well-deserved, especially in the last couple of years. So thank you. And now I just want to introduce our athletic director, Mr. Greg DeCini. He's our new athletic director. Picture. Our new athletic director, Mr. Greg DeCina, he jumped in the role in mid-September and has done such a wonderful job, and he's a great addition to the administrative staff at the high school. Mr. DeCina.
Good evening, everyone. I'm here to celebrate the efforts of the 2021-2022 Haverford High School cross-country team and coaches on their incredible fall season. In my first few months as the Haverford High School athletic director, I've had the opportunity to spend a significant amount of time with this team in particular. I was even able to go on a few runs with this group, one of which we ran all the way to Coopertown, and they assured me that that was a short run. Now, it's one thing to be the slowest runner in the group, but it's another thing to have an emergency phone call and have to be on the phone for the entire run back, which I've found out is not a good thing to be a cross-country runner on the phone. Now, by running with this group, by visiting their practices, and even just by talking with their coaches for a few minutes here and there, you realize extremely quickly that you are amongst a team that's led by some of the most motivated and mature young adults. These individuals, who this group in particular was all setting the pace up at the front, but you learn a lot about a team when you're in the back of the group, like me. And one of those things is that the pride and effort of these groups and these leaders trickles all the way down to the back where I was, and it becomes the identity of the team. These are the student athletes and the leaders that will be driving our community forward. So this season was the first time in school history that both the boys and girls teams qualified for the Pennsylvania State Championship at the same time. The success of this group this season is a testament to the commitment of these individuals, but also to their commitment to one another and to their incredibly caring and dedicated coaches. Congratulations to the Haverford girls cross country team, who finished 9th in the state of Pennsylvania. And congratulations to the Haverford boys cross country team, who finished 1st place in the Central League, 1st place in Delaware County, and 5th place in the state of Pennsylvania. Congratulations. So here to represent the 2021 and 2022 boys and girls cross-country teams. Boys coach Matt Wells, girls coach Laura Clinton, and assistant coach Elizabeth Clinton. I'm going to call just our runners who are present to represent the group today. First off, Ethan Fingerhut, who is also the 2021 Daily Times Cross Country Runner of the Year. Patrick Lawson. Quentin Ryan. Remy Dufresne. Gabe Zwilling. Cam McGeehan. Olivia Thompson. Mary Plunkett. Shannon Baricki. Mackenzie Gillespie. Thank you very much to the school board for recognizing this group of runners, and thank you very much, gang, for setting such a strong precedent for the group behind.
We appreciate the students' attendance. It's always great to have the accomplishments of our students to applaud. You may leave the board meeting now if you do not want to stay for the whole time. Yeah. The next order of business is a public comment period. There is one member of the community that has signed up for public comment tonight. When you come forward, you will have 3 minutes to give us your remarks. Katie Lattice. Is Katie Lattice here? No? Okay.
Thank you, Ms. Newman. All throughout the state of Pennsylvania and other states as well, the month of January is a time when we recognize and appreciate the individuals who willingly volunteer countless hours of their time serving as school board directors. And we wish to express our appreciation to the 9 members of our board in Haverford Township this evening. We hope you will accept this small token of appreciation, a winter scarf and pin, and wear them proudly in Haverford years. We are, you certainly feel free to open those if you wish. We in the school district are most fortunate that the individuals who are seated here this evening care very deeply about our district and approach their work very seriously. They are believers in public education and recognize the long-term commitment required to sustain such a reputable district. You see them here on the first and third Thursday of each month, but what you may not see are the many hours that they spend serving as district representatives to committees outside of the school, attending our now additional meetings of Committee of the Whole, attending events in addition to those that involve their own children, and engaging in studying matters in order to make informed decisions when a decision needs to be made. These individuals exemplify leadership and dedication, giving unselfishly to our community, the students, and the schools in our district. They want to provide our children with the opportunity to learn within the best educational system possible, and for that, we say thank you. And to your families, we extend our appreciation for sharing you with us. Thank you on behalf of the administration, staff, and students for your dedication to our system and to each of us. Thank you. Moving along, tonight we had indicated that we would spend some time revisiting again our health and safety plan, picking up from the last two meetings where we had a little bit of discussion, sharing some of that information with you. And fortunately, we're not voting on anything tonight. And I'd say fortunately because we're sharing updates. We're looking at the recent CDC guidance that has come out and the very recent CHOP guidance that has come out. We're going to try to answer some of the questions that have been raised over the last two meetings and identify any additional questions that board members may have. We'll start with a quick review of when we last met. We're going to talk about what has occurred since we last met, and then looking at some questions that were raised by members, a very quick review of the recent guidance from CHOP. And then I also want to take a little bit of time to talk about our staffing this week and what we have encountered this week, and then summarize with what we think we're looking at for January 20th and what we may be asking you to vote on. So very quickly, when we last met, we had talked about, three options. There certainly could be more, but when you look, and we were pretty focused at that point in time, just talking about masking. And when could we start to move away from required masking to potentially looking at, based on data, based on information, when would we move to optional or recommending the masking? And one of the options we presented was, we could maintain our current plan, which bases that decision on data within Delaware County, if it is, substantial or high. Another option that we've talked about, more than once now is looking at revising the current plan, basing that on local township data. We continue to be involved with Dr. Brennan. As you'll know, Dr. Brennan from the University of Pennsylvania is also the practicing medical professional on the Delaware County Board of Health. They are in fact meeting this evening and hopefully will get their sanction, that's my word, not an official word, from the state to begin to function in that official capacity. So more to come from him. But we've maintained our connection with him for a number of reasons, but predominantly right now to look and see when he thinks we might be able to get some of that local data. And then the third option that we looked at was just, to separate the decision from any of those local numbers, and really just take a look at, given the fact that we've got vaccination available to now our entire school population, and students and staff, and they've had sufficient time to become fully vaccinated if they choose to do that, and look at that as one of the rationales that we would move towards, masking would be optional or recommended. We reported that we know over 90% of our staff are vaccinated, We're not reporting any numbers on students. That's a voluntary collection, really to facilitate if we're doing any, contact, close contact communication with parents, knowing who's vaccinated. In some instances, maybe the child could just remain in the classroom instead of having to step out of the classroom while we would get in touch with the parent. We've just started to collect that information, so it would be premature for me to give you counts, since some of the collection time was over the winter break. So now I'm going to turn it over to Nicole Battistelli, who will talk about, since we last met, so what has changed? Because it's going to influence some of what we will continue to talk about tonight and the recommendations that we're looking at.
Okay, good evening, everyone. So over winter break on December 27th, the CDC released new recommendations. And these recommendations really update the isolation and quarantine time period. So outlined on this slide, you can see if someone tests positive for COVID, the isolation period is now 5 days if they have, if by day 5 they are asymptomatic or have improving symptoms. So that's a change from the previous recommendation, but they would still need to wear a mask when they're around others up until day 10. Those who are fully vaccinated and boosted, if they've been exposed to someone who tested positive for COVID-19, they would not need to quarantine, but they should also wear a mask up until day 10. People who have been exposed to someone who's tested positive, and it's been more than 6 months, if they had Pfizer or Moderna, or more than 2 months after their primary vaccine series, and they're not boosted, they must quarantine for 5 days and wear a mask around others until day 10. In all scenarios where someone has been exposed to somebody else with COVID-19, the recommendation is to test on day 5 if possible. The picture to the right is what's called a PA-HAN, which is for Health Alert Network. This is PA-HAN 615. This is what's sent to school districts and healthcare institutions when there is an update. And so we received this document after the CDC updated their recommendations, stating that these are now the Department of Health recommendations, and they're consistent with the CDC recommendations. And Dr. Reusche, I'm going to turn back to you.
So before Nicole talks a little bit about some of the changes that have come out of CHOP, there are a few things that I want to point out. In the narrative description out from CHOP, Dr. Rubin and his colleagues are using words like milder infection, looking at preserving as much in-person schooling, because that outweighs the risk of infection to children and school staff at the stage of this pandemic. It goes on to read that they do consider some of the recent changes out of the CDC, and they are recommending that an emphasis continue on mask wearing for a period of time. But then they go on to talk about looking at reducing some of the school-based testing or reducing some of the contact tracing. And I think, my takeaway, I'm not quoting, I'm not paraphrasing Dr. Rubin in any way. This is my own interpretation, that he's looking to help us move past, looking to help us learn to live in this environment and start to get more towards the school that children are familiar with than what they have experienced over what will be 22 months next week. So I get that sense. We'll certainly post this information. It's on CHOP's website, but we will post this accompanying article so that people can read it at greater length and look to see how they would interpret that as well. So with that in mind, Nicole will talk about specifically what are the recommendations that CHOP is making for schools to consider.
Sure. And this update came out yesterday, so this is fairly new information. CHOP is recommending continuing indoor masking requirements within buildings and at school activities regardless of vaccination status. emphasizing that sick individuals, people sick with respiratory illness, stay home while symptomatic. Students and teachers with mild symptoms consistent with COVID-19 consider testing if available, and discontinued required weekly testing of asymptomatic students, teachers, and school staff. In addition, the guidance has allowed COVID-exposed but asymptomatic staff and students to continue to attend school in person, what they're calling a 7-day modified quarantine. This is during periods of high community transmission, and that is wearing a mask, testing if there's any respiratory symptoms present, and if the exposure is household, moving to test to stay. What has not changed since our last meeting is that we are still, we haven't been given notice that there's been any change to this requirement, and this is under the PA Department of Health, and this is what I would say is kind of a threshold for when they would make a recommendation for a school closure or a classroom closure, and that's still, that has not changed. You can see it's 5% of students. That's pretty significant in our buildings, just to make it clear.
So a few of the topics that came up during our December 16th meeting that we can provide responses to, one of the questions was, will local data be retroactive? So once the Delaware County Health Authority is up and running, would they be able to provide data over a period of time? They're checking with their epidemiologist. That Board of Health has hired an epidemiologist to see what has been constructed prior to receiving state data for the county. But there could be a gap between with the response that we got when asking this question. There could be a gap between when Chester County discontinued providing the information to Delaware County and when the Delaware County Board of Health is up and running. We will not know that until they start working with that data. There was a question/comment about testing to stay, if we were mask optional, concern that students may not wear the mask because teachers won't be able to keep track of who should be wearing them. The reality of that is that is a possibility. Teachers are in the classroom to teach, and this tracking of who's wearing what, who needs to do what, we're almost becoming an arm of a health department. And we need to keep in mind that we're a school, and there is going to have to be some sort of honor system in terms of, who should be wearing what, who should be doing what. There was a question about would we as a board here get a chance to speak with the new director? And the response to that question was that, they expect the new director will be in great demand, and can't speak for her, but she would be encouraged to at least be on the regular calls that are held with the superintendents, and that there would be a lot of demands on her time initially. So we didn't get a no to the answer, but so maybe not right away, but at some point in time. There was a question about the definition of a volunteer for this. Is this, same as clearances? And this was about looking at either vaccination or a negative COVID test. We maintain the same definition for a volunteer. However, we have been limiting those activities which involve volunteers coming into the buildings. I think, if you'll recall, we were primarily focused on getting this in place so that at the elementary levels specifically, there could be parent volunteers who would come in and help with winter break festivities before the winter break would begin. Any consideration to masking optional for students who receive speech services and hearing services? We do have Clearview masks for staff and for students that are in use, and again, we encourage individual families to make that outreach to the teacher, to the building principal. We had a question about incorporating more mask breaks throughout the day. And I've surveyed building principals about that. Mask breaks are typically scheduled by the teacher or the grade level, and that's the way I believe they need to be. We cannot be mandating to the teacher exactly when
a mask break needs to occur. We need to trust the professionalism of our teachers who know the kids, know the children that they're working with, and in planning out their schedule for the day, all have reported that there's usually a morning break and an afternoon break for the students. The teachers need the latitude to be able to work around their instruction and the activities taking place in their classroom, and then to determine when that mask break would be taken. There was a question, could we clarify when meeting with an adult, we would not require a vax or a test, only if with the students. During the instructional day, any individual who goes into the building beyond the office, and that would be someone who would be coming in to volunteer for something. But if you are coming into the building, meeting with a guidance counselor, meeting with a team about your child, meeting with the building principal, those meetings are all occurring in around the main office area. People aren't out in the building, so we're not saying that to come in and have that meeting, you would have to be vaccinated or test, produce a negative COVID test. And then the question was asked about the capacity for tests to stay and if we exceeded it. In our call last week, Dr. Rubin indicated that as of right now, CHOP does have enough to last the school districts that CHOP is providing that service to through to the end of February. We actually felt encouraged hearing that he didn't say, we've got enough for the next couple weeks, but through to the end of February is what we know we will have. Nicole's going to take the next, we wanted to circle back to actually some things that came up at the December 2nd meeting when we talked about this.
And so this is just an update. Delaware County, according to the CDC, 73.9% of those 5 and over are fully vaccinated now. That increased about, I think it was 3.9%. I believe it was 70% at December 2nd when we met. Our staff, over 90%, has shared proof of vaccination, and we have started collecting on a voluntary basis student vaccination information.
And I will mention, we have already been in touch with Springfield Pharmacy about the possibility of a clinic that would include not only boosters, but if there were people who still were unable to get the initial vaccine. We're doing that. We would be doing that as a service to the community, making it available for parents who would be interested in having their child get the booster. So as soon as we get a date from Springfield Pharmacy, we'll be able to look and see what's going on in our district, and then we'll look to start seeking volunteers who might be willing to assist with that again. We continued to keep in here some of the previous information that we did share out of the CHOP Policy Lab blog, just to remind people, this is back on December 9th. CHOP started talking back on December 9th about, taking a look at community spread and looking at contact tracing, quarantine, and how we can begin to start to, or continue to mitigate spread in the buildings, but not as maybe engage in all of this as intensely as what is occurring in our buildings now. Again, we're not saying that there are any recommendations that are coming out to abruptly move away from masking. You can see a lot that's in here does tie into the once cases start to decline. But back early in the month of December, people like Dr. Rubin, there's another quote in here a little bit later from Dr. Brennan, said that they would expect to see districts start to move in that direction, but move intentionally so, and know why they're making the choices that they are to shift to mask optional policies moving forward. On the December 31st CHOP blog, highlighted that last piece there where they're advising school leaders to look at emerging data so that children can resume their in-person education in that new year, as long as schools are able to staff their campuses for returning students. And I think that's what's, in some instances where schools are virtual, it's predominantly because of staffing issues. To give you a little bit of an idea, what our staffing has been like this past week, starting out with January 4th. Right, so that top box that is there identifies January 4th for you, and this represents just teachers. Right, this does not represent any other employee group in the district. So on January 4th, we had a total of 75 absences in the district. 47 of those were unfilled, which means in 47 instances across the district, our building principals and our teachers were looking at how to reconfigure, how to provide instruction for students with those absences occurring. On January 5th, Wednesday, we had a total of 78 absences. And what we're starting to see, you'll see the next, I think today was high with 84 absences. And some of that is people being able to return, and then new people having to go out for a period of time. The reduction of quarantine to 5 days has helped considerably when you consider the length of time that all of these, some of these folks would have had to have been out before that reduction became reality for us. But on today, as our absences increased to 84, 54 of those absences were unfilled. So again, what's happening there at an elementary level, you may find that children are not having art, or they're not having music, or there's, one teacher there for an hour, there's another teacher coming in for another hour, and so teachers are not getting time that they typically would have had to prepare their materials, to prepare their classroom for the next couple of classes that they would be teaching. And that's wonderful that they're doing that, but that's not sustainable for a long period of time, for someone to be engaged in that work. Because we are also then, managing some students in front of the teachers in the classroom, and there are some students who are online. So, and even if they're not interacting in the moment with those students, they're materials that were prepared for those students. Our building principals are in classrooms teaching as well. These absences reflect only teachers. The percentages of absences in our other employee groups are similarly high. So in addition to teachers being out, when instructional assistants, the people who work one-on-one with children, or the people who support children throughout the day, when those people are out as well, then there's, again, cobbling together how I'm going to meet the needs of this child or these particular children, or who's going to supervise this group of children when they're in the cafeteria, when they are out at recess. So as we have heard about other districts not being able to open, I don't want people to think that everything is great in terms of our staffing here. There's a lot that the building principals, the teachers, every adult in those schools, there's a lot that they're doing in order to make this happen. Throughout the week last week, principals were monitoring this. They're monitoring this list every day. They're looking at this list each night. Before we left to come over for the meeting, we already have 67 absences for tomorrow, and 36 of them cannot be filled. As people get more, either their tests back or whatever, what will start to happen now, and I know, we're in our board meeting, but I already know, I've got the messages about the neighboring districts that have already made their decisions about tomorrow. I knew that was happening without even getting information from the districts, because these numbers started to increase. So it is a system that depends on one another. So when one district makes a decision, That might not be such a great impact. But I am sure those numbers for tomorrow are well beyond 67 as I see either they're going virtual or they have already announced a snow day for tomorrow. But my point in raising it to you tonight is to recognize what our teachers are doing and what the adults who are in the schools are doing in order to make all of this happen. And I think that's also why even in his remarks, Dr. Rubin had said, continue that in-person education as long as you are able to staff that. So back to our health and safety plan and what we foresee, we will continue to look at those guidelines out of CHOP. They have been shared with our building principals. I asked them to take a look at them, to think about it from, boots on the ground perspective and what that could mean, what that would look like. And we have planned an administrative discussion for that. We will then take a look at our health and safety plan, and are there changes that we may be recommending to our health and safety plan for your consideration. So I will share with you tonight, one of the things that I really want to explore further is looking at this contact tracing. And the contact tracing, let's maintain that in our large congregate settings, particularly where masks are removed. But I'm not quite sure there's a whole lot of benefit to contact tracing when children are sitting in a classroom, they're already masked, they're distanced, and we've got people who are spending time doing contact tracing and reaching out and letting parents know and sending all of this communication. So that's one of the things we're going to explore further. We know that we need to look at what would be the recommendation for masking. At what's the criteria that we would ask you to have us consider for masking to go optional, or now the word's becoming masking recommended. And we want to look at discontinuing the required weekly testing of asymptomatic staff. So not saying that we wouldn't test people, people who present with symptoms, but people who are not symptomatic, and having nursing staffing used in that capacity is something that we'd like to take a look at. There may be other things that we add to the list, but I wanted to let you know where our thinking is, at least for right now, and what we may be bringing back to you on January 20th. Thank you.
Would you like, is this the time for discussion and comments from the board?
Mm-hmm.
Does anyone have any questions for Dr. Reusche?
I'll start off. I have two. Dr. Reusche, I was wondering if there was any guidance given on if a student or a staff member gets COVID, follows the recommended quarantine procedures, returns to school, and then is deemed a close contact in a short amount of time, the next week or 2 or 3. Do they have to repeat that whole procedure of quarantining again if they've just themselves we had proof that they had COVID?
Ms. Vitale, I'm going to give that question to the person that I go to.
So you asked if they had COVID recently and then were...
If a student or a staff member tests positive with COVID, follows all the recommended guidelines and procedures, quarantine, stays home, returns to school, and then in a short amount of time, the next week or 2, is deemed a close contact again, do they have to restart that whole procedure?
No, if you have had COVID in the last 90 days, then you do not need to quarantine.
Okay.
You'd have to wear a mask like all the other close contact scenarios.
Okay, and my other question is, we spoke at the last meeting about some of the difficulties with the guidelines as they were on the December 16th meeting, about maybe possibly an honor system with the masking, because who would be keeping track of what days? Is this just a new wrinkle? Now I'm seeing with the new guidelines, as they read, it says if you are vaccinated and boosted, if you've been vaccinated greater than 6 months ago and boosted, that seems to me a whole lot of, it's going to be very difficult for our staff when you have students who are newly vaccinated, like my youngest son, students who are older who are vaccinated in the summer, like my oldest sons, and who may not have been boosted yet. That seems, is that just going to have to be following that, an honor system?
It's if they, like when adults were vaccinated, we're now eligible to be boosted because it's been, more than 6 months or more than 2 months in
So
J&J,
now
and then we had
everyone's
boosted.
12 and
But
above.
the children, let's say the children who were just at our vaccine clinic, they're not eligible to be boosted yet because they had the vaccine recently. So they're considered fully vaccinated and would not have to quarantine if they were a close contact. If it's a student who was vaccinated last year when adults were, and they're not boosted, then they have to follow the quarantine guidelines and wearing a mask.
Correct. I'm just saying, is that just a whole nother system of honor system for it to be
It
followed?
would have to be. Anytime when we're saying someone has to wear a mask in the I mean, everyone, right now we have masking in our buildings, but if we move to a different, plan, it would have to be the honor system, because there would not be an easy way for a teacher to keep track of who's wearing one because they want to wear one, who's wearing one because they were a close contact 2 days ago. When does that end for that child? And when, that's, it's going to have to be the honor system.
And my last question is, a lot has come up, and I've seen questions raised with the new CDC guidelines, which I think are great, lessening the quarantine time, that after 5 days, if you return, that you have to remain masked. Obviously, students will have to take off their mask to eat. So even if we do follow, as we should, follow the new CDC guidelines, these students could come back to school at day 6, they're masking during the day. Is there provisions being made for them to have maybe lunch in a separate room?
So it's the same as test to stay right now. In test to stay, you have to wear a mask, and you can't, you have to wear a mask. So if you're doing test to stay, you have to be distanced during lunch. So in certain buildings, they're already distanced at lunch enough. In other buildings, they have a different location for students who are participating in test to stay.
Okay, thank you.
I had a couple questions. So first of all, just a comment. I won't speak on behalf of the board, but just on behalf of myself, thank you to you and all of the teachers with all of these staffing shortages for everything, getting our kids in school in person this week when so many districts are going virtual. That has to be a heavy lift for everybody. So thank you. I greatly appreciate it. So a couple of questions. Screening at home has always been very important, but I think now more than ever, it's extremely important. And my understanding is the symptoms of this new variant are more like a cold than like what we were used to, like the high fever and the loss of taste and smell. Are we planning on sending out any kind of nagging emails to everyone, just reminding them that, so many people have said, oh, it's just a cold. Oh, I just have a cold. And like, nope, just kidding. Now everyone at your party has COVID. I guess that's my concern, is that so many people are used to I forget all the names, the Alpha and the Delta variant and like what we were screening for then, but it's a little bit different now. So just, are we going to be doing something to remind parents and just keep that vigilance and this is what you're looking for and that kind of stuff? Are we going to be sending out reminders about that?
We will send initial information out. We will probably not continue to send reminders to people afterwards. What we will remain very vigilant about is, please do not send your child to school. If they, don't send them with the flu.
Yeah.
If it's not COVID, if it's the flu, don't send them with the flu. Just, keep your child at home.
Okay, thank you. And then also masking is obviously very important, but quality and fit, as they always were, but I think maybe now more than ever. I've been reading that, I'm not a medical professional, I'll state that, I'm not that kind of doctor. But I've been reading that masks like the KN95s or the N95s or something similar to that are the most effective. Are we doing anything to provide those for teachers and staff? Are we doing anything to, I guess, like encourage parents to upgrade the kinds of masks that they're sending their kids in, anything like that, just to minimize the spread, minimize the absences, all of that, and keep everybody healthy and protected?
We have not to date, and the primary reason for that, primary reason is we've not sent any communication home yet, because we're just back on Tuesday. If that comes as a recommendation from either CHOP or, from the Pennsylvania Department of Health, that's what we would direct people to, because again, like you had said, we're not healthcare professionals, so I would not be inclined to tell someone that, I read that this is a better type of mat. Like, we would want to direct them to a source.
Okay, thank you. Those are my questions. Thanks.
Question. So Dr. Reusche, can you clarify how parents and guardians are being contacted when there is a positive case for their students? It seems that it's been some of a change this week, and I'm wondering if there are going to be differences or consistencies, rather, across the board for all of our schools.
There has been a change this week, and Nicole will certainly jump in because she provides better guidance than I do to the principals around this. But the primary change that people are seeing this week is that there is one communication that is going out instead of the, here's an email for you at 10 o'clock, here's another email for you at 11 o'clock, here's something at 2 o'clock in the afternoon. There's an email at the end of the day, sort of summarizing what the cases were in the building.
Okay.
And I would be very forthright and say it is a management structure that we put into place so that our principals can get out of their offices and throughout the building and into some classrooms on a really hectic day. And right now I'm just defining hectic by a number of cases that could be occurring. So on such a day, the principal can spend most of that day in their office getting those communications out to people. So we've streamlined that into one, and that was, at their request. And we took that under consideration. Anything that we can do to help them, we will. Nicole, do you want to talk a little bit more about
Sure. We changed it also so that the email that goes to the school community can identify the location of where the positive cases were in that building, and the buses, to make it a little bit easier, especially if you have more than one child. It might get confusing if you hear it's in a, you don't know if it's in your child's, this one's class or that one's class. Now you know which classes. We also, because of the change and because the PA Department of Health sent the HAN and their website and some of their other stuff has not yet been updated, the letters that we had been sending are out of date. So we had to adjust the quarantine, and now we kind of made it our own, where it still explains that you can quarantine, but it also includes the option for test to stay and a link to that consent form, and then the parameters around where you wouldn't have to quarantine. But so that was hopefully helpful to people to have that in one communication.
Thank you.
You're welcome.
I have a question for you. Just for some clarification on the test to stay, so two points. If a student is living in the home of someone who is positive with COVID, so either another sibling or another adult, it said that they then could qualify to remain in school under test to stay?
Not right now.
Not
no.
right now, okay.
That was in the recommendations from CHOP. If you move in the direction of masking, the modified 7-day quarantine with masking, that those individuals will do test to stay. Right now, that's not allowed.
So right now, what is the policy for those students?
So
who are asymptomatic, not testing positive, but are living in a home where
they have to quarantine. So the quarantine, as outlined, now, is in place. We have the option, if you're identified as a close contact in school, to do test to stay. But if it was outside of school, you're going through the 5-day quarantine.
And is test to stay, because I've just heard several parents being confused on, is test to stay only for unvaccinated children or for all, both vaccinated and unvaccinated students?
So it's for unvaccinated students, and it's for students who are eligible to be boosted but are not yet boosted. Because the point of test to stay is that they get to stay at school. Those who are fully vaccinated and boosted or just received their, the 5 to 11-year-olds, they wouldn't have to quarantine, and the point of it is to avoid quarantine.
Thank you.
I have a few comments. parents and residents who've been continuing to reach out to the board and superintendent via email to let us know your feelings on these issues. I would very much like to acknowledge and thank the teachers for 22 months into this thing. It just continues to change from week to week. We appreciate your hard work and your determination. Likewise, to our parents and our kids, I think we all hope that we'd be sitting here in the new year and things would be more normal. I read this morning in the Delco Times that all Delaware County hospitals are at capacity. If for no other reason, I would urge everyone to, if you're not vaccinated, get vaccinated. If you're not masking, please mask to protect our healthcare workers. Those healthcare facilities are at capacity. Yesterday, I believe our daily average new cases in the county is well over 1,000. If you look at the graph of new cases since April of 2020, we've now rounded the J-curve. The chart is going straight up. Anything that we can do collectively to reduce the spread of this thing, we should do. Listening to the presentation, especially the CDC recommendations, I couldn't help thinking to myself, who's going to do that? Who's going to keep track of all that stuff? How would we even know? And you answered it. Honor system. I think we need to proceed with caution. Hopefully in a couple of weeks, this thing will settle down. And if for no other reason, then we'll all have it. So thanks for the presentation this evening. I look forward to this continuing to evolve. I know that we will get more information, more details on the shop guidance, which was just issued yesterday. And we'll see what else changes between now and January 20th. So, thanks, Dr. Reusche.
And can I clarify? I just wanted to clarify one thing that I said. When it's an in-home, like the parents got COVID and the child is asymptomatic, it's actually, the quarantine starts from the last date of exposure. And so the last date of exposure would be once that parent has reached their 5 days. So for a child at home, it's more likely 10 days if they can't isolate from each other. Just to make that clear.
And I think that is a good case in point for one of my suggestions or requests. Hopefully with the ever-changing, evolving guidance that have come in, every couple of days from various sources, it would be great at some point soon if it's the Delaware County Health Department or the Pennsylvania Health Department or the CDC, if there is a way to synthesize and kind of depict some of this guidance, so that parents have a reference to, a flow chart of if this situation, this many days, and masking and all that. I feel like there's a lot of understandable confusion and frustration and uncertainty about what to do, and hopefully people with every best intention are trying to do the right thing, and it's just hard to know what the latest protocols are. So hopefully we'll get some assistance in getting it into a snapshot or one page or something we can post on the website to let people really know how to respond to these different situations, because within a household, day by day, different quarantine procedures or positivity cases can come up and be hard to just manage the logistics of. So hopefully we'll get some assistance on that. And I also do just want to commend our administration and staff for being able to work together so well, to be open. When I look at the graph that Larry referenced, the highest point of cases that this county has experienced, and yet we're open. I think that's a real testament to the mitigation strategies that we have in place, and to the protocols, but like more so to the willingness of the staff to adapt and respond and cover and put the priority on keeping our kids in schools. I think all along that's been the message of this board is we want to safely keep our kids in schools, and I just commend all of the efforts that have gone into doing that. Any other comments or questions?
I just have one quick question and slash clarification. 90% of staff has been vaccinated according to their, that they volunteered. Is that all? That's all staff, correct? That's not just teachers. That is like support staff and everybody else.
Yes.
Okay.
Clarification on that, does that include boosted, or we don't know?
No, that doesn't, we don't know that, is the better way to answer it.
Okay. Do you have anything else?
No, we will be back again on the 20th of the month with hopefully some updates if they exist, and then also some recommendations if there are any aspects to the health and safety plan that we feel need to be changed in order for us to make those changes moving forward.
Dr. Reusche, would we be voting on anything on the 20th?
There's a possibility that you would be, might be asked to vote on some of the things that I had mentioned in that last slide.
Okay, so things we've already discussed.
Yes.
Okay, got it, thanks.
Yes, would not be anything new. Thank you.
Thank you. We are now in the finance facilities portion of our agenda. The first item is item A, the bill list. And the action is to approve disbursements from the general fund totaling $785,794.50.
Person moved.
Crispin, second.
Any discussion? All in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed? The motion carries. Item 6B is regarding change orders. The action is to accept the recommendation of the project architect, KCBA and Associates, Inc., and owner's representative, CB Development Services, Inc., and authorize the change orders totaling $10,932.88 as listed.
Feinberg moved.
Crispin, second.
Any discussion? All in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed? Motion carries. Item 6C is a correction to the Chatham Park Climate Control bid awards. The action is to approve corrected total contract amount listed with the SB Conrad Inc. bid that was previously approved at the December 16th, 2021 regular board meeting.
First moved.
King, second.
Moved and seconded. Any discussion? I'll just note that the dollar amount of the discrepancy was just $500. All in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Motion carries. Item 6D is the McCullen-Coughlin engagement letter, and the action is to acknowledge the engagement letter with Mullen-Coughlin for legal services as necessary.
Person moved. Crispin, second.
Any discussion? All in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed? Motion carries. Item 6E is for CDM Technologies, Technology Disposal. Action is to approve the agreement with CDM Technologies, LLC, for the disposal of obsolete technology items.
Feinberg moved.
King, second.
Moved in second. Any discussion?
Can you clarify what constitutes obsolete in today's day and age? Like what kind of equipment is being recycled or replaced?
Well, the equipment that's listed there comprises older, there could be a combination of some laptops, some iPads, but there are also networking equipment that is no longer usable on our network. The year in which some of that would have been purchased, it could have been for outdated reasons. And this is what Mr. Anderson typically would do in working with CDM Technologies. They will be paying the district for, we're not paying them, they're paying us to remove that property.
Great, we're getting some money back for them.
Yes. Yeah, Rob does a good job with that.
Right, there was a list of over 1,900 individual technology items, some of which have a date from 2008, that era, so most of that would generally be considered obsolete. Any other discussion? All in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed? Motion carries. In the human resources portion of our agenda, item A is retirement and resignation. The action is to accept the following retirement and resignation as listed.
King moved. Crispin second.
Moved and seconded. Any discussion? All in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed? Motion carries. Human resources appointments. The action is to accept the following appointments as listed.
First moved.
First and second.
Moved and seconded. Any discussion?
I just had a quick question. A few of them were like part-time, let's say bus driver to part-time bus driver. Is that, I didn't see what was changing.
They should read part-time bus driver to full-time bus driver?
Well, there would be some that would only change the part-time hours to
Other part-time hours.
Okay,
part-time hours.
okay,
So it would remain part-time.
Okay.
Status hours.
okay, because yeah, that makes sense. Okay, thank you.
Thanks,
And that's a
Greg.
lot, and there's a lot of bus drivers.
Yes,
who-
which is exciting. Yay, bus drivers.
Which is awesome, so that's very good to know.
Good.
It's great to see that we have more appointments than resignations or retirements.
Isn't it?
Yeah. No balance, but yeah, also grateful to the bus drivers and all the new people we're bringing on.
Any other discussion? All in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed? Motion passes. Item 7C for leaves of absence. The action is to approve the following leave requests.
Crispin moved.
Wait a second.
Second.
Any discussion? All in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed? Motion passes. In the curriculum and instruction portion of the agenda, student educational excursions. We are asked to approve the student educational excursions as listed, which pertain to track team.
Larson moved.
Crispin second.
Moved and seconded. Any discussion?
Congratulations.
If some of them were here, we could have congratulated them in person. All in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed? Motion carries. We have a second public comment portion. I will ask again if Katie Lattis is in attendance and wants to speak. No? Okay. Board reports. Dave, do you want to start?
Just Happy New Year, but no report.
Working our way down.
Yeah, let's work our way back.
I don't have a report, but I do want to just take a moment to acknowledge our teachers for all the hard work and dedication and commitment, and for being ever flexible, and resilient as well. Wishing everybody a happy new year. 2022 is coming in hot. I hope everybody is healthy and safe, and hopefully had some time to relax and rejuvenate. I know it's a stressful time, and there's a lot of things to be stressed out about with COVID because we're not out of it yet, but hopefully everybody's doing as well as they can do. So, Happy New Year.
Danielle?
I was excited this week to attend with Dr. Reusche, Bridget and Larry, the Linwood PTO meeting in my home school. And I stayed on for the duration of the call, and it's really remarkable, as Dr. Reusche alluded to, what our teachers are doing. And it was so great to see that the PTO is giving back so much with, to the teachers, anything they can do. At Linwood, they even had a favorite drink cart going around, found out every teacher and staff member's favorite drink, whatever it was, and delivered it to just anything to bring a smile to their day, because they're doing so much, as you noted, to keep our children in school, because there's nothing more important than that. They're so committed, the staff, and it was nice to see all the appreciation that they were getting from the PTO. So that's it.
Last night I attended my first DCIU meeting. I was voted in by the members of that board to serve, so I wanted to thank you all for your confidence for voting me to be our representative to the DCIU board. There's a lot to learn. I'm excited for the opportunity, so thank you again. Yeah, and this is just very exhausting. Just all that we've all been going through, and 2022 coming in hard is no joke. I just want to, remind people how truly lucky we are here. I'm witnessing in some other places right now where school systems are on the brink of collapse, and things aren't good. So I do want to thank all of our staff here, all of our teachers here, but I also worry that, my thanks and my words of gratitude aren't going to go far enough. I think, I hate to be, a little dark here, but I pray and hope that things get better, because it's a tough time. So thank you to everyone, and I wish there was more I could do.
And I'm just going to reiterate everything people have said. I just want to thank our administrators and our staff and our teachers for working hard to keep us open this week. I'm looking at those numbers. It's a lot that you're taking on. So thank you.
Mr. Feinberg?
Yeah, Dr. Reusche, the senior administrators, President Wiedemann, and myself attended another staff appreciation breakfast just before Christmas break at Coopertown. It was great to see everybody, and those have been really nice events. I understand we're going to hit the pause button
Take a pause
for a little bit
yes.
before we hit the rest of them, but it was great to see everybody.
I will just echo the appreciation to the staff and administration and the good wishes for a good start to 2022. Hopefully it gets better from here. We did not have an executive session meeting tonight. The board did meet for an informational session. The next regular public board meeting will be on January 20th, 2022 at 7:30 p.m. in the auditorium at Haverford High School. Is there a motion to adjourn?
Kristen, second.
All right. Thank you.